In Monster Hunter World, there are many aspects to consider when taking on a hunt. The target, your weapon, these are all important, but hunters who want optimal performance need to consider the build they use via the armor and gear they wear. I'm Darcblade, and here are the builds that I use for the Switch Axe. The skills that you can gain from armor and even some weapons can help shape your hunter into specialized hunting machines. With the Switch Axe, a lot of them are DPS focused, as the weapon excels at dealing out high amounts of burst damage. The various builds I use are a mix of DPS, enhancements to the file system, survivability, and countering one of the weapon's greatest weaknesses, its mobility. Anyway, let's move on to talk about the first build I use, which is the ELEMENTLESS build. This is a straightforward DPS build that utilizes one, if not the strongest Switch Axe in the game. So for this build you'll need the Nergigante Helm Beta, Draken Mail Alpha, Draken Vambraces Alpha, Azure Starlord Tassets Alpha, and the Dante's Leather Boots Alpha. You'll also need the Handicraft Charm 3, and for your weapon you'll be using Axe of Demons, with an affinity increase on it. As for your jewels, there are really only two mandatory ones you need to consider here. First, the Elementless jewel to increase the damage of Elementless weapons or weapons who have their elements hidden, such as the Axe of Demons. Afterwards, I'm taking a Sharp jewel. The Sharp jewel is kind of required in order to keep that tiny bit of white sharpness for a little bit longer. Afterwards, it's just a case of adding jewels to increase your attack or boost your affinity. Anyway, if you've done what I've done here, you should be walking away with a build that has 100 health and 100 stamina, 980 attack, white sharpness, 40% affinity, power files, with a strong defense against thunder and dragon, but you're fairly weak against ice. As for the skills, you'll have the following: Critical Eye level 6, Attack Boost level 4. I tend to always go to Attack Boost level 4 to give myself that 5% extra affinity. Handicraft level 4. Handicraft level 4 is needed with the Axe of Demons in order to get that white sharpness. Weakness Exploit level 3. Maximum Might level 3. Maximum Might is great on the Switch Axe as the weapon doesn't really use stamina except for when performing the Wild Swing. Crit Boost level 1. I would like this to be higher, but unless I've got an exceedingly high chance of actually guaranteed crits all the time, I instead opted for increasing my actual affinity chance rather than the actual damage of the crits. Protected Polish level 1, as I said, this is needed to keep that white sharpness for a little bit, and Non-Elemental Boost level 1. You'll also have the set bonus Elemental Airborne, although it's a wasted set bonus on this set. As I said, this is a straightforward DPS build. Before going into a fight, make sure you sharpen your weapon to apply that protected polish so you can keep that white sharpness for longer. If you're going for weak points and have maximum might, you should have almost 90% affinity, and whilst it's not quite 100%, it means you still should be critting quite a bit. And whilst you don't have the maximum crit boost, the amount of crits you can perform, and with just a little bit of crit boost, on top of the high raw damage that the Axe of Demons has, means that you'll be dealing a lot of damage. Now if you're looking for alternatives, unfortunately the Draken stuff is hard to come by. The Azure Starlord Tassets as well is kind of restricted to a special event quest, but you could potentially swap the Azure Starlord Tassets out for the Kushala Cocoon Gamma. As for the weapon, like I said, the Axe of Demons is one of the highest attack value Switch Axes in the game. You can, if you want, use the Turoth Axe Horn, which is the Korvturoth version of this weapon. It has pretty much the same stats, although it has a little bit more defense, and instead of having a jaw slot, it is instead a rarity 7 weapon, which means that you can customize it with a second augmentation of your choice. But in terms of damage, it is exactly the same as the Axe of Demons. Anyway, let's move on to the next build, which is the Master's Touch build. This build again is a DPS focused build that uses a non-elemental weapon combined with the Master's Touch set bonus. Master's Touch means that you won't lose sharpness so long as you crit a monster. Anyway, for this build you'll need the Nergigante Helm Beta, Draken Mail Alpha, Draken Vambraces Alpha, Draken Coil Alpha, and the Draken Greaves Alpha. You'll also need the Exploiter Charm 2, and for your weapon you'll be using the Turoth Axe Paralysis. The weapon also has an affinity increase on it. As for your jewels, make sure you take the mandatory Elementless jewel to increase the damage of weapons who have their elements hidden or don't have any elements whatsoever on them. Afterwards, it's a case of maxing out as much affinity as you can through Mighty Jewels, Tenderizer Jewels, Crit Boost Jewels, and anything else you can get your hand on. You will have a few slots spare, to which I use the Enhancer Jewel, which provides you the skill Power Prolonger, which allows you to keep your Switch Axe charged up for longer. Anyway, if you've done what I've done here, you should be walking away with a build that has 100 health and 100 stamina, 903 attack, only blue sharpness unfortunately, but this weapon cannot get higher, 75% affinity, so long as you have maximum stamina, a power file, and you'll have a fairly strong defense against dragon and thunder, but you're below average against all the other elements. As for the skills, you'll have the following: Critical Eye level 7, Attack Boost level 4, Crit Boost level 3, Power Prolonger level 3, as I said it will help your switch axe stay charged for longer, Maximum Might level 3, Weakness Exploit level 3. Now some people may argue that this is wasted, as the base affinity with Maximum Might is already 75%, level 3 Weakness Exploit provides 50%, so long as you're attacking weak points, giving you well over 100%. The reason I've stuck with level 3 Weakness Exploit is because I may not have maximum stamina all the time. This just guarantees that my attack should still crit. You can drop a Weakness Exploit if you want for something else, the choice is down to you. You also have non-elemental boost level 1, as well as the Soul of the Dragon set bonus that provides elemental airborne, and more importantly, Master's Touch, which prevents sharpness loss when you crit a monster. Now this build could also be seen as the affinity build in a way, as the build is all based around affinity. Now unfortunately, if you're looking for alternatives, there is not much I can suggest, as the Draken armor is kind of needed. I suppose in a way you could go with the Teostra armor set, which is the Kaiser armor set, but then you would have to consider rebuilding the whole build. Also, you may be wondering why I'm not using Axe of the Demons with this build. It's because it comes with a minus 30% affinity on it, unfortunately, and although you can slightly offset this with a affinity increase augmentation, it potentially still means that you're going to be under that 100% affinity. Nonetheless, the Axe of Demons is a perfectly viable option for this build if you're looking to use a different weapon. Anyway, let's move on to the next build, which is the TYRANNOS build. This build is very similar to the Master's Touch, but instead of using an Elementless weapon, it utilizes the TYRANNOS switch axe, which is the Devil Joe switch axe. This switch axe has very high attack value and comes with a dragon rating on it. Anyway, for this build you need the Nergigante Helm Beta, the Draken Mail Alpha, Draken Vambraces Alpha, Draken Coil Alpha, and the Draken Greaves Alpha. You also need the Exploiter Charm 2, and for your weapon the TYRANNOS. This will have a affinity increase augmentation on it, and then an augmentation of your choice. I went with a slot upgrade. As for your jewels, there are no real mandatory ones here. Personally, what I've gone for is handicraft jewels to increase the white sharpness slightly of the weapon. Afterwards, I've gone for boosting my affinity and attack through Tenderizer, Might, Critical, Attack and Expert jewels. Now if you've done what I've done here, you should be walking away with a build that has 100 health and 100 stamina, 855 attack, white sharpness, 50% affinity, so long as you have maximum stamina, 180 dragon rating with high Elder Seal and power files. Again, you'll have a decent defense against dragon and thunder, but below average against the rest. As for your skills, you'll have Critical Eye level 7, Attack Boost level 5, Crit Boost level 3, Weakness Exploit level 3, which means that you'll hit enemies for 100% affinity so long as you go for weak points, Maximum Might level 3, Handicraft level 2 and Power Prolonger level 1. You'll also have the Soul of the Dragon set bonus that provides Elemental Airborne and Master's Touch. So as you can see, this is a variant of the Master's Touch build, which again means it may be hard to come by. Nonetheless, the TYRANNOS is a very strong switch axe to use, especially against monsters who are weak to dragon. Unfortunately though, it means you do have to contend with a minus affinity rating on the weapon. But thanks to Maximum Might, Weakness Exploit and Critical Eye, you should still be able to hit for 100%, so long as you're going for weak points. Anyway, let's move on to the next build, which I like to call the Balance build. This is one of my personal favourite builds, trying to combine attack, affinity with strong defense and utility. Anyway, for this build you need the Empress Crown Beta, Empress Mel Beta, Draken Vambraces Alpha, Nergigante Coil Beta and the Draken Greaves Alpha. You also need the Invigorated Charm 2, and for your weapon I'm using the Empress Axe Sticks with an affinity increase on it. When it comes to the jewels, none of them are really that mandatory, it depends how you want this build to work. With the larger jewel slots, I've gone for affinity-based jewels, which include Tenderizer, Critical and Mighty jewels. I've also added a Handicraft jewel to just add a little bit more white sharpness to the weapon, and I've also added Vitality jewels to increase my health, adding to my survivability. Now, if you've done what I've done here, you should have a build that has 150 health, a maximum of 150 stamina, 735 attack, white sharpness, 51% affinity, which is 100% when going for weak points, 240 blast rating with power files. You'll also have a decent defense against most elements, although you're fairly weak against ice. As for your skills, you'll have Attack Boost level 5, Health Boost level 3, Critical Boost level 3, Weakness Exploit level 3, Critical Eye level 2, Power Prolonger level 2, Peak Performance level 2, which helps your damage so long as you have maximum health, Evade Extender level 2, which is very good for the switch axe. This counters the switch axe's mobility issues when the weapon is drawn, as it increases the distance you roll. You then have Maximum Might level 2, Handicraft level 1, and Razor Sharp / Spare Shot level 1, which reduces your sharpness loss by half. You also have the Lunostra Favor set bonus, Stamina Cap up, increasing your overall stamina, as well as the Soul of the Dragon Elemental Airborne. But these are really both byproducts of the actual armor I'm wearing. Nonetheless, like I said, this is a build that tries to balance all aspects of the switch axe to provide you with survivability, utility, and damage. Now again, unfortunately, a lot of this is high-end stuff. You can of course replace the Empress Axe sticks with one of the other Empress axes, but I went with sticks because the switch axe unfortunately does burn through sharpness quite quick when attacking. Anyway, let's move on to the next build, which is the Elemental build. This is a basic DPS build that focuses on elemental weapons. Anyway, for this build you'll need the Nergigante Helm Beta, Rathalos Mail Beta, Kushala Grips Gamma, the Azure Starlord Tassets Alpha, and the Nergigante Greaves Beta. You also need the Invigorator Charm 2, and for my weapon I'm using the Legiana Frost Reaver, with an affinity increase, augmentation, and then an augmentation of your choice. I went for a slot upgrade. As for your jewels, none of them are really mandatory. I've gone for a sharp jewel in order to keep that white sharpness a little bit longer with this weapon. Afterwards I've gone for jewels to increase the actual frost damage of the weapon, and then gone for jewels to help the affinity of the weapon. If you've done what I've done here, you should have a build that has 100 health and 100 stamina, 613 attack, white sharpness, 55% affinity, 390 frost rating, which is actually maxed out on this build. You also have the power elemental files, which is another main draw of this build. It utilizes weapons that have that power elemental file. As for your defenses, you have a strong defense against fire, water, and ice, but you're fairly weak against dragon and thunder. As for the skills, you have the following: Critical Eye level 4, Ice Attack level 3, Weakness Exploit level 3, Maximum Might level 3, Focus level 2. You may ask why I put Focus on this build. Well, Focus helps the switch axe in numerous ways. It helps the cooldown timer of the sword form, as well as increasing how quickly you can power up your actual files. You also have Power Prolonger 2, Handicraft level 1, and Protective Polish level 1. You also have the Rathalos Mastery set bonus, Critical Element, to increase elemental damage when you crit a monster. Like I said though, this build focuses on trying to utilize a monster's elemental weakness, so you can switch out the Legiana Frost Reaver to whatever elemental weapon you want. Unfortunately though, two pieces of the gear are quite hard to get. The Kushala Grips Gamma are from Arch-Tempered Kushala, but these could be replaced with the Diablos Nero Grips, and the Azure Starlord Tassets Alpha could be replaced with another piece of the Azure Rathalos or normal Rathalos pieces. Just remember though, you still need two pieces of the Rathalos set in order to get that critical element. For those wondering why I'm using the Azure Starlord stuff, is because it also provides you with the critical element and can be combined with other pieces of the Rathalos set to get that critical element set bonus. Anyway, let's move on to the next build, which is the Hidden Element Elemental build. This build focuses on weapons that have their elements hidden and aims to draw their full value out. These weapons that have hidden elements tend to have high elemental values on them. So again, it is a build that you need to consider your target's elemental weakness. Anyway, for this build you need the Kaiser Crown Gamma, the Rathalos Mail Beta, the Kushala Grips Gamma, the Azure Starlord Tassets Alpha, and the Kirin Legguards Beta. I've also gone with a Mighty Charm 2, and I'm using the Taroth Axe Thunder for my weapon. This also has an affinity increase on it. As for your jewels, well, the most important one at the moment is a release jewel, unfortunately, which is kind of rare to come by. Release jewels provides you with that free element skill, so this combined with the Kirin Legguards maxes that skill out. Afterwards, I've gone with a sharp jewel to enable me to get that protective polish to keep that white sharpness for a little bit longer, and then I've gone for bolt jewels to increase the actual elemental value of the weapon, and then jewels of your choice. I went with a tenderizer and enhancer. All of this should give you a build with 100 health, 100 stamina, 613 attack, white sharpness, 50% affinity, 620 thunder rating with power files. You also have a very good defense with above average against water and dragon. You actually have no negative weaknesses with this build. As for the skills, you'll have Thunder Attack level 5, Free Elements level 3, Critical Eye level 3, Weakness Exploit level 3, which means that technically you have 100% affinity when you go for weak points. Focus level 2 to help charge up and recharge your files faster, Maximum Might level 2, Power Prolonger level 1, Handicraft level 1, Protective Polish level 1, and you also have the Rathalos Mastery set bonus critical element. This build in a way is similar to the last build, but some of the pieces of armor are harder to replace. You are using more gamma pieces, so again unfortunately this is a relatively high-end build. Anyway, let's move on to the next build, which is the exhaust build. This build is built around a strange weapon that has an exhaust file on it. This can help tire out monsters quickly, leaving them at your mercy. Anyway, for this build you need the Nergigante Helm Beta, the Kaiser Mel Gamma, Kaiser Vambraces Gamma, the Damascus Coil Beta, the Kaiser Greaves Gamma, and an Attack Charm 3. For your weapon you need to use the Jaguarus Raider 3. This has a couple of affinity increase augmentations and a slot upgrade augmentation on it. Now, as for the jewels, you have a lot to play with here. First, I would strongly recommend taking an Elementless jewel. Afterwards, go for jewels to increase your attack to at least level 4, and then increase aspects of your affinity through Tenderizer, critical and expert jewels. And then after, I've also added 3 drain jewels to help the exhaust file of this weapon. Anyway, if you've done what I've done here, you should have a build with 100 health, 100 stamina, 837 attack, blue sharpness, 70% affinity, with exhaust files, and a decent defense against fire, but you're fairly weak against water and ice. You'll also have the following skills: critical eye level 7, attack boost level 5, critical boost level 3, stamina thief level 3, weakness exploit level 2. It only needs to really be level 2 as I've already got 70% affinity. Latent power level 2, this is just a byproduct of the gear, but it can be useful. Maximum might level 2, focus level 1, and non-elemental boost level 1. You'll also have the Teostra's technique set bonus that provides you with the Master's Touch, which prevents sharpness loss when you crit a monster. Thus the reason there's no real handicraft on this build. Because this build has very high affinity, Master's Touch comes in useful for keeping your sharpness gauge from depleting. Besides, the Jaguarus Raider 3 unfortunately cannot get to white sharpness, which is also another reason there is not much handicraft on this build. Now this build is relatively simple to build, however the only aspects that may need swapping out are the Kaiser Gamma stuff. You can replace them with Kaiser Alpha or Beta pieces of armor, but it means that the build may not be as powerful as it is here. It will still be functional and it will still be quite potent, and you'll still have Master's Touch, but it may not be the strongest. Nonetheless, the Jaguarus Raider is one of the easiest weapons to craft in the game, and if you're new to high end, then this may be one to consider. Just remember though that pretty much all of the Elder Dragons, except for Nergigante, are immune to being exhausted. Anyway, let's move on to our last build, which is the budget build. This is for players who have just got to high end or the vanilla version of Monster Hunter World. This build here is a combination of DPS and utility. So for it, you'll need the Nergigante Helm Alpha, the Kushala Kista Beta, the Death Stench Grips Beta, Nergigante Coil Beta, and the Kushala Crus Beta. You'll also have the Handicraft Charm 3, and for your weapon, go with the Axe of Demons. As for your jewels, unfortunately if you are getting into endgame for the first time, you may not have a decent variety, but if you are able to get an Elementless jewel, I would strongly recommend that. Afterwards, make sure you add an attack jewel to get your attack boost to level 4, and then afterwards go with stuff to either increase your affinity, or, as I've done here, put a jumping jewel to add a bit of survivability and utility to the build. Anyway, if you've done what I've done here, you should have a build with 100 health, 100 stamina, 980 attack, white sharpness, 25% affinity with power files. You'll also have a strong defense, especially against ice and water, but you're fairly weak against thunder and dragon. You'll also have the following skills: handicraft level 5, attack boost level 4, critical eye level 4, evade extended level 3, which can help with your survivability, maximum might level 3, which helps your affinity so long as you have maximum stamina, focus level 2, and non-elemental boost level 1. You can of course replace the Axe of Demons with pretty much any weapon you want, but if you are using a weapon that has an element, don't forget to take off the Elementless jaw if you've been lucky to get one. So there we have it, those are the builds that I like to use for the Switch Axe. Of course Monster Hunter World is always being updated with new monsters and gear which can potentially cause these builds to change and become even stronger. So if any major updates happen with any of the builds, I will release an updated video. Remember also that any task in Monster Hunter World can be taken on with pretty much almost any weapon and gear set. You don't have to use what is in this video. These are just the sets that I personally like to use. Anyway, I hope you found this video helpful or informative, and until next time, I've been Darcblade, bringing you the builds I use for the Switch Axe in Monster Hunter World. Hope you enjoyed the video, thanks for watching, subscribe and like for more.